Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is July the 28th, 2026. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Hopefully, the day treated you well, treated you right, treated you nice. As for me, as for myself and I, it's been a better day. A bit of an improvement from yesterday, at least mentally. But physically, I don't know. Still not doing too hot. Still got, my whole little medical saga, odyssey, if you will. I'm essentially in a situation where my pain is maybe inching up. And, I'm just kind of waiting for my next doctor's appointment with now my third doctor. So I don't know. I really hope that this is gonna be the guy and that this works out and I get some really concrete answers. But we're knocking on wood, we're saying our prayers, we're manifesting our destiny. I don't know, whatever, but we'll see. But the beat goes on. I knew I had to get myself together and get to work, so that's what I did. It's been another slow day. Usually would be a busy day, but I did have a conversation the other day with one of my coworkers. They're like a supervisor, and I just asked them, I'm like, man, it seems slower. Like, it seems slower than it should be, right? Like, am I crazy? And he's like, no. Essentially, there's a fully automated DC in another state, and essentially they're taking all the work now that they're up and running. And I was like, oh, okay. So that plus maybe supply issues or people just not wanting to spend right now because we got a whole fucking war going on. Okay, that's making a lot of sense. The one and the two here, maybe. But that being said, then that means, well, damn, that doesn't mean things are really gonna pick up anytime soon, huh? So, I mean, at least that's what I was thinking to myself after that conversation. So, I don't know. I'm trying not to be too pessimistic or anything like that because I know it's tough all over. But I was like, "Ooh, that is not good news to hear." But so it goes. I know that we cover a lot of AI news, and I was like, "Well, that's interesting." That there you go. It might not be exactly necessarily in my warehouse, but definitely in the chain of warehouses that we have. The company decided to be like, "Hey, we can afford to literally just downsize this warehouse and just fill it full of robots who are just going to do the orders, and they'll be perfect or close enough, and that'll be good. We'll make so much money that way." And it's like, we'll see how that goes. Um, but yeah, that was work. Work was good. I think I got out like 20 minutes early because I was like, all right, there's just no more work. I've milked this as much as I could. I'm not gonna like try to scurry around for putbacks for 20 minutes. I'm good. So I left. I went to the gym. For Tuesday was pretty good. Was able to hit the movements I wanted to hit, so that's solid. Got some cardio in, good. Then I came home and I just kind of did half of my stretches. Like at this point, I was kind of physically taxed enough, and I was like, all right, actually, no, sorry. I skipped the part where I went to the grocery store because I needed to pick up some groceries. But yeah, got all my groceries and everything up, and I was like, I don't want to stretch. I don't feel like it. I feel like nomming on some snacks, and I feel like sitting down and doing some research, and I feel like taking some Advil. So that's what I did. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at. We're all researched and ready to go. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into the news. Oh man, I really did not expect this year to be, such a medical thing. But so it goes. Does anyone really expect that unless they're like planning on getting some kind of like cosmetic elective surgery, right? Which is not that's not my tea. It's not my thing. But so it goes. I gotta say, I'm very grateful that I have friends and people who are close to me check up on me, ask questions, and are really nice and supportive. I'm very, very appreciative of y'all. Ooh. Okay, let's go ahead and start off with our first story from Reuters. I'm always flip flopping on this. Reuters, Reuters. Japan quake kills at least two after blast at Kumamoto Mall. One in building collapse. A 7.1 magnitude earthquake hit Japan's southern Kumamoto prefecture on Tuesday, killing at least two people after an explosion tore through a shopping mall and another in a building collapse, while knocking out power to thousands of homes and rupturing roads across the region. The prefectural government said early on Wednesday that rescuers working at the scene overnight had taken 8 people out of Aeon Mall Kumamoto shopping center, where the blast occurred following the quake. Of those 8, 2 women in their 20s were confirmed dead, while one other person was reported to be in cardiopulmonary arrest. The 5 others were injured, but officials said their condition was not life threatening. Emergency fire rescue teams, police, and self defense force personnel were working together at the scene overnight, concentrating search operations on areas of the building where calls for help had been received. Speaking to reporters from her office in Tokyo on Tuesday, Japan Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said authorities were still assessing the full extent of the damage in the area, which which was also devastated by a deadly quake a decade ago. Let's see, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Around 300,000 people were instructed to go to evacuation centers, while aftershocks continue to rumble in the area on Japan's southwestern island of Kyushu. Let's see here. Once again, we're going to fast forward a bit because I wanted to get to the picture that's in the thumbnail. Multiple people were also unaccounted for after a chimney collapsed at a Nippon paper industry factory. Broadcaster NHK reported, while 2 hospitals were each reported to be treating more than 50 people, some in serious condition. Several passengers aboard high-speed trains at the time of the quake were also injured, operators said. So there's more details, but yeah, obviously, big earthquake, big tragedy. I will say, I mean, it is a almost astounding that you hear an earthquake like this, because we've covered, what happened in Venezuela. I believe the death count last I had heard was like in the 3,000s. Similar magnitude, right? But in this situation, you're hearing a number of 5, and I know that number could go up. Or I might be getting that number off the top of my head wrong. Sorry, 2. But hearing such a low number after that that's incredible. That's always awesome. It just kind of goes to show that you do have a situation where you can have a higher level of preparedness. I was listening to Start Here. A person said they were, I think they were in the middle of doing something, and they got a text message, a notification saying, okay, there's an earthquake, brace yourself, da da da. And then within 5 seconds, that's when it hit. So, I mean, having that level, even though, I mean, that's not much of a warning to give you, much time to prepare yourself or brace yourself, but at least it's better than nothing. You have the infrastructure on top of that, and then to have a good, strong rollout, when this hits, I think it just does a whole world of difference. So yeah, I mean, obviously condolences to the people who've lost their lives, people who are, obviously greatly affected. It also sucks that, this is a constant thing. You have to be this prepared, because if you're not, this is going to happen again and again and again and again, and the numbers are just going to be way too high to count. And, you just have to be this prepared. You have to be this on it. Let's see. What was a random fun fact I guess I wanted to talk about? What was Sanae Takaichi? Apparently, she only sleeps up to 5 hours a night. Something like that. I was listening to the BBC and they had mentioned that essentially as no, I think it was less than 5. I think she had been happy to finally get 5 hours of sleep in a night. And it's like, and I know that in Japan's culture, it's very work oriented, very it's an endearing quality, but Any person, that is not healthy. That's not a good thing. You are working yourself to literal death. Like, that's not something to be that revered, in my opinion. Obviously, you're a hard worker. Period. You shouldn't be judged by the lack of sleep that you're getting. I heard that and I was like, ooh, and it is good that like that is a part of the discourse. Not like everyone was like cheering and clapping for her. People were in comments saying like, why are you promoting this? That's not a good thing. You should be getting rest. You're our prime minister. Like, what the fuck? So I don't know. When I heard her name, that instantly sparked in my brain. I know we should be talking earthquakes, but in the sake of levity, you know. And hey, this is coming from a person who is fighting for 5 hours of sleep every night, you know, and I would love to get more, but it's hard. It's hard. Anyway, let's move on. From ABC News. Teen sentenced to life without parole for deadly mass shooting at his high school. A teenage boy who carried out a mass shooting at his Georgia high school, killing 2 students and 2 teachers, was sentenced to life without parole, with the judge calling his actions deliberate. Contemplated evil. Colt Gray, 16, which is crazy to be at that age being like, hey, I want to be a mass murderer, mass shooter, whatever. Colt Gray, 16, faced a sentence of life with or without parole after pleading guilty to all 55 counts against him, including murder and aggravated assault. Judge Nicholas Prim handed down the sentence on Tuesday in Barrow County after taking over an hour to deliberate following closing arguments, during which prosecutors said the teen idolized other mass shooters and wanted infamy. You wrote, I want to make history. I want people to remember the pain I caused. And there you succeeded, Prim said. The pain that you visited upon this community is unlikely to disappear in my lifetime. You do not seem to be tormented by what you did. You seem to relish following in the footsteps of murderers you idolized. You aren't racked with guilt. You are proud of yourself. Let's see. Prim said Gray studied and obsessed over mass shootings and was well aware of their outcomes in court. Life without parole. He said Tuesday's sentence does not bring joy, but closure. The slain will not return to life. The injured will not forget their wounds, and a 16-year-old boy will live and die in prison, Prim said. Gray was 14 years old in September of 2024 when he opened fire at Appalachia High School, killing 2 students and 2 teachers and injuring several others. He pleaded guilty last Friday without negotiating a plea deal, which is something that their lawyers tried to say, like, oh my, like, hey, judge, you should, he did the community a favor by doing that, like you should show mercy in that regard. And like, that's a bit, to me, that was macabre to throw that up as a defense, in my opinion. Like, not the move, but I mean, I guess you got to try for all your outs for your client. The state asked for life without parole, arguing that Gray committed the shooting not because he was suffering any emotional breakdown, but because he wanted eternal fame within the true crime community, or the TCC. Which this is my first time hearing this as like an acronym, and it kind of threw me off because I'm like, is this like, are we going to be getting into a specific kind of group? And they really don't name it, at least on this article. They're just said like a subculture, and I'm like, is this a certain kind of group that is like meeting on forums or whatever, or are we just talking, when we say TCC, are we just talking about people who are like true crime junkies who just like, follow the articles or the documentaries or whatever, like, because there's a stark difference between those things. And even if we're talking subcultures, I feel like you should be like naming a specific one before you just say, this blanket community, because to me that was just that's weird, and I don't know, whatever. Let's see here. I think it's become abundantly clear through the state's presentation of evidence that the ultimate goal of all of his actions and his underlying motive was to be famous. Famous not in the sense that we adults think of fame, but specifically famous and popular within the subculture community known as the TCC. And I'm like, that's not, like, what is that? Like, are you just saying in general, or is this a specific group? Like, they got a Discord? Because I would not want to be a part of that. Sounds creepy. Are you getting it? Like, no, I don't know. That District Attorney Brad Smith said during his closing argument on Tuesday. Smith acknowledged that Gray had a bad childhood, but argued that doesn't excuse his actions. The district attorney said they have not seen evidence that Gray has any ability to ever value human life, and that the teen cannot be in society. He's the only one in the history of Georgia who has ever taken an assault rifle into public school and opened fire on perfect strangers, simply so he could be famous, Smith said. Let's see. Oh, this is the defense that I mentioned earlier. The defense, meanwhile, said Gray spared the community a trial by admitting his guilt. He focused on the teen's upbringing, arguing that his parents left him with no stability or moral grounding. Motherfucker, that doesn't mean that you just get a free pass to do, a mass shooting, or not even a free pass, but that you should be like, oh, you poor thing, they're there. Like, no, a lot of people can have a bad upbringing. That doesn't then equate for them to become this kind of person, to seek express themselves or find some kind of notoriety or whatever like this. No, that doesn't equal out. Let's see. I wanted to kind of skip to the last part I wanted to cover here. Obviously, there's more important details, but here's my highlighted portion. Gray carried out the shooting with his rifle. With a rifle his father, Colin Gray, gifted him as a Christmas present, officials said. This March, Colin Gray was convicted of charges including second-degree murder and manslaughter. He is scheduled to be sentenced on Thursday. It was actually this part that rung the bell for me, because I was like trying to read through this when I initially, pulled it up, and I was like, obviously this feels so familiar, but we've just done so many shootings have happened. I was like I was just trying to jog myself of who this was, and I remembered, I'm like, oh, this isn't the Michigan case that we've covered, but this is another follow-up where it's like, look, we have a clear issue where a parent just is using poor judgment and saying, hey, I can do this, so I'm going to gift, my child a firearm. And maybe they aren't in the mental, maybe they aren't in the mental faculties for this, but who cares? It's fine that they want it. Well, I'm gonna give it to them, whatever. And it's like, clearly this is a grievous mistake, but essentially, it goes to this theme that we have now of saying, hey, we're not only going to get the person who did it, the child who did it, the 14-year-old at the time, but we need more. Like, this isn't enough. So we're going to take this way all the way up to the parents if we can, and once again, and we're doing that as opposed to tackling any other kind of issue or problem or regulation. But, I know that I'd be getting into the weeds if I continue down that route. So we're going to put on the brakes. And yeah, I just wanted to cover and do this update. I don't know, if we're going to come back for any more details or closing parts of this. We'll see. But yeah, speaking of closing things, from The Guardian. Actually, let me take a water break. Florida becomes first state in nearly a decade to execute 2 people on same day. Florida on Tuesday became the first state in nearly a decade to carry out 2 executions in a single day, putting death to an 80-year-old man who was the second oldest inmate known to receive a lethal injection in modern U.S. history. Yay! We love a record-breaking moment. Awesome. I guess not record-breaking, but at least we're topping the charts in Florida. Yay! Hours earlier, the state executed a former police officer convicted of the killing of a young girl. Ron DeSantis, Florida's recovering governor, Florida's Republican governor, has made the state's death chamber the nation's busiest at the end of his final term, saying too many families have waited too long to see justice. So I'm just gonna do a Grim Reaper sprint and kill as many as possible. He is essentially padding his fucking kill death ratio for another run at a presidency, I would imagine. Meatball Ron 2, Electric Boogaloo. Or, he just wants it for, once again, his achievos, his little accomplishments, to say, hey, wasn't I the best governor ever? Well, Florida, didn't you love me? Didn't you love how I ruled? So yeah, he has apparently just been going out of his way to kill. Essentially, you are doing executions. I think the way it is set up in Florida, he doesn't have to be forthright. He can be very discreet about this. He can just queue it up, get it all set up, and then it's like, okay, we're going to do an execution today. And there's not much you can really do to get ahead of that and put an injunction or any kind of last minute appeals. And it's a lights out situation. and then he just moves on to the next. And I mean, I get it. You were doing this in the guise of justice. And I know that in those situations, you were going to find some person or some group of people, usually of the religious variety, or people who are eye for an eye. I get it. Who are going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. This is a part of the law and order thing. Like this is a thing. Capital punishment. We do still have it, as a thing in some states. But yeah, it is always going to be something that fucking bothers me. And especially when you were doing a literal fucking BOGO. Like, that's crazy. So I wanted to talk about this. The lethal injections, just hours apart, were the first nearly back-to-back executions since Arkansas put 2 men to death 3 hours apart in 2017, which isn't that far back. DeSantis, who has the authority under Florida law to set execution dates, decided earlier this month to carry out both executions on the same day. Nationwide, the use of the death penalty has been declining for 2 decades, but that number has ticked up behind the increased pace in Florida. Since 2025 began, Florida's carried out nearly half the state's executions across the country. They're just like, yeah, we are the Rim Reaper now. Just slicing through, I guess. Dominique Anthony Achicone, the octogenarian, was pronounced dead at 6:13 p.m. at Florida State Prison near Stark, following a three drug injection. His execution came nearly 5 hours after ex-police officer James Aaron Duckett, 68, received a lethal dose in the same death chamber. Shit was still fucking warm. The curtain of the curtain to the chamber went up for the last time on Tuesday at Ochicone's 6 p.m. scheduled execution hour. Ochicone was strapped to a gurney with an IV in his arm and a spiritual advisor near his feet. Asked if he wished to make a statement, Ochicone said he thanked all of his Christian brothers for visiting him over the years. He also apologized to the family of the victims and to his own family for what he had put them through. I know it don't mean much, but I'm sorry, Ochicone said. I never meant to do what I did. The injection began at 6:02, followed by several minutes of deep breathing. When Ochicone's breathing slowed, a warden shook him and yelled his name, but there was no response. It is a very brutal way. I remember being a kid and thinking like, oh, okay, well, it's just like an injection, and sure, shots hurt, but like, you just go to sleep. A lot of times, it is like, I think it's just a slow. I've heard suffocating death. I've heard potentially painful in terms of like the mixing of the injections, if it can potentially have any kind of issue or whatever. I think in this person's situation, due to like medical reasons, they might have had like thin veins. So there's really no knowing in those last moments how it's going to go. And essentially, there's grounds that it could potentially almost always be unusual. But in this situation, yes, there was definitely a higher likelihood, but that was shrugged off. Let's see. Ochicone, who was convicted of killing his ex-girlfriend's parents in 1986, is the oldest prisoner executed in Florida's history since modern record-keeping began a century ago. An older inmate, 83-year-old Walter Moody Jr., received a lethal injection in Alabama for a wave of mail bombs in 1989 that killed a federal judge and wounded a black civil rights attorney. Duckett was pronounced dead early on Tuesday afternoon following a 3-drug injection. Duckett was convicted of raping and drowning 11-year-old Teresa McAbee while he was working as a police officer in Central Florida in 1987. Duckett declined to make a final statement, responding, "No, sir," when asked. About 4 minutes after the execution began, the prison's warden shook Duckett and shouted his name, but there was no response. I guess that's just how they do it. They go, "Hey, hey," and he did. So afterward, the girl's family members said they suffered for decades. "I waited nearly 40 years to have him dead," Dorothy Tula, the victim's mother, said before breaking down. "This man took advantage of his badge," said Tracy McFall Bruskirk, the girl's cousin. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's important to mention what these people's actions are. I understand that. I am not advocating for these people to ever get out of jail, to beat the case, or anything of that nature. But to say, hey, let's go out of our way to get revenge. Because it's not, what is the justice? It doesn't bring back the person. It doesn't undo the fucking crime. At the end of the day, you just killed a person. and at the state expense. And it's like, well, we have to fund them to, it's like at the end of the day, it's more money to kill these people every fucking time. So to me, it just never feels worth. And I'm sure people could say, well, you don't know until you're put in that situation. Obviously I do. I get that. But at the end of the day, I still feel like whether I'd feel good about it or bad about it, that's not necessarily justice at play there. That's just me getting my eye for the eye back. That's it. And okay, I might feel better forever, maybe. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to make anything right. So, and I know this is a thing that gets brought up too, is like, what if you sentence a person to death, you fucking make it happen, and then you come to find out, oh, this person didn't do it? Because there's a lot of times where that happens. And a lot of times, statistically, those are people of color who were just shuffled and pushed through the fucking system. And to say, well, we were just trying to do due diligence and get our justice. Okay, at the cost of an innocent person at times. So to me, it is just not worth it. If you could avoid this fucking fate, you'd avoid this fucking situation. Why not? Why not do it? We're supposed to be a modern, civilized fucking society. So that is where I'm coming from with this every fucking time. I think it's worth talking about every fucking time. I say that, but I don't cover every fucking execution. I definitely don't. Otherwise, we'd be here covering other shit. But this was a big one. This is a notable one. And I think once again, the backbeat of this to me is not justice. This is Ron DeSanctimonious padding his fucking stats for another presidential fucking run. It's gross. It's evil. And people are going to cheer him on for it and applaud him for that. And I won't. I'm sorry. I fucking won't. Fuck him. I hope he loses again if he tries to run. Which I'm getting into the fucking weeds here as we go and close out with our last story. And trust me, it's a lot fucking lighter. But this is just random me just thinking like, Marvel What If? Ron DeSantis shouldn't have ran when he did. I think there's an alt reality, an alt timeline where he just plays his fucking role. He shuts the fuck up. He doesn't try the fucking man. He doesn't try the fucking Emperor in Orange and lose. And he just, once again, continues to do what he's doing, essentially padding his stats, making Florida look like, oh, it's the best place ever. We're getting all the crime up. We're killing all the people. And we're so MAGA. If he had just stuck to the brand, played his fucking role, he wouldn't have looked like a fucking loser at a presidential campaign level. And like, he wouldn't have had that loser stink on him like he does now. He had to slink with his tail between his legs. He looked like such a fucking loser. And Trump literally played him the whole way. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens if he does wind up doing another run. It's to the point now though, we don't even talk about him anymore. We're talking JD Vance. We're talking fucking Narco Rubio, man. Like, those are the real players now because this dude fucking overplayed himself. So, I don't know. He's got to do something. So he just chose to be, I guess, Lady Death. But yeah, let's go ahead and close out with a much lighter story. Let's have a snack. All right. We gotta do a deal with Little Debbie. Oh yeah. Mm. All right. Story from Local 12, but I know it's making the rounds. This is where I pulled it from. Little Debbie delivery driver sold snacks at flea markets, submitted fake invoices. Police. A Little Debbie driver allegedly sold snacks at flea markets, then submitted fake invoices to make it seem stores had purchased the products. 39-year-old James Powell of Valley Grove, West Virginia, was taken into custody after the City of Washington police launched an investigation into alleged theft and fraud involving a Little Debbie snack delivery driver. Per the report, the department was contacted by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office regarding an investigation involving a former employee of Stewart Snacks LLC, which is based in Richmond, Ohio. When speaking to law enforcement, the business owner said that while Powell was an employee, he allegedly transported, delivered, stocked, and serviced Little Debbie products at various retail locations throughout Washington County, Pennsylvania. Police said distributors would deliver the products police said distributors will deliver the products to stores, then submit invoices, which the businesses would then pay per CBS. Investigators added that the suspect was paid on a commission basis, and at the end of each week was paid based on how many snacks he sold within his assigned territory. During the investigation, law enforcement reportedly uncovered fraudulent invoices submitted to stores, including Giant Eagle, Walmart, and Shop and Save, totaling more than $13,300 from July to September of 2025. Per the report, investigators also discovered that Powell had allegedly been selling products for cash from his delivery vehicle at flea markets, then submitting fake invoices indicating that the products had been delivered. Per the report, Powell allegedly collected more than $3,700 in commissions, bringing the total loss to more than $17,100. And they charged Powell forgery, theft by deception, theft by unlawful taking, deceptive, fraudulent business practices, tampering with records or identification. Okay, obviously I'm putting my little tisk, tisk, tisk. This is bad. Bad man. You shouldn't have done this. But, I mean, technically, do we call this a heist? Do we call this like a fraud? A little scheme-a-rooney? I mean, should I rate it? I mean, this feels really low. And honestly, like, I'm not saying, oh, it's harmless. Like, obviously, this corporation has lost thousands of dollars, but, like, it's literally under 20K. And, oh, he flipped some fucking Little Debbie's in a parking lot, and you're mad? And you're crying? At a fucking entrepreneur? Wow. In these tough times? Okay, all right. What? I guess the American dream is dead? No. Obviously, this is not what you do. This is not the move. But I get it. You know, if I'm driving past the fucking flea market and this motherfucker's pulled up in the truck and he's got it for me, he's got some moon pies for me. All right, let me make a deal. So it goes. Yeah, this is pretty low. I don't know, man. This is like a 2 out of 5. I don't even really. This is a freeform scale. I make it up as I go. Whatever. Interesting though. Very tasty. You know, free him. No. But anyway, that's it. That's all I got. That's the episode for today. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. Roll call is coming up. I shout you out. Plug a project if you like. I mean, more or less, it's just a tip jar, though. You know, this is, show some support. Help me buy a cup of coffee. But you don't have to do that. Anyway, freeways hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to subscribe to the YouTube. Follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen. Let's see, leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is always caring. All the stars are appreciated on the Spotify, on the Apple Podcast. But if you don't do any of that, that's fine. That's cool. I just appreciate that you came through, you listened to me whine about my day, and let me try to attempt to meander through some news. And hopefully, we'll do it again soon. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.